Welcome to another reading. We're just finishing chapter 6, then we'll read chapter 7. Chapter 7's a little shorter. So they just made an interesting discovery, right? They found the imprint of the 3 rings and what Claudia thinks is the letter M on the velvet where the statue was. Okay, and so that's a pretty big clue. And we left off, and Jamie was making fun of Claudia. So we'll just back up a little sentence. She's talking about how they don't want to run away. They don't want to go back home because she wants to solve this mystery first, that it's going to make a big difference or a big change in her life. And Jamie says, "I think you're different already, Claude." "Do you?" she asked. She was smiling and her eyes were modestly lowered, ready for a compliment. "Yes, we're all sane and you're insane." "Jamie Kincaid!" Okay, I'm insane too. I'll go along with you. Besides, some of the complications are getting interesting, even though some are dull. How will you disguise your handwriting?" "No need to do that. I'll use a typewriter." Claudia waited for Jamie's look of surprise. She got it. "Where are you going to get a typewriter?" "In front of the Olivetti place on Fifth Avenue. We passed it twice yesterday. Once when you made us walk from the laundromat, and again when we walked from library to library. It's bolted to a stand outside the building for everyone to use. You know, sort of a sample of their product. It's free." Jamie smiled. "It's a good thing that I'm insane about walking. Otherwise, you would never have found that typewriter." "And it's a good thing that I'm an excellent observer," Claudia added. They marched up Fifth Avenue and were delighted to find a piece of paper already in the typewriter. Across the top of the page someone had typed, "Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party." Claudia didn't know that this sentence was a common one used in practice typing. She thought it appeared appropriate to their message and would add a proper note of mystery besides. "Here, Saxenberg, is a copy of the letter Claudia typed. You can see that her typing needed a great deal of improvement." Okay, so I'll read it to you and then I'll show you because it's got some crossouts and things. "Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their party. Dear Museum Head, we think that you should examine the bottom of the statue for an important clue. The statue we mean is the one you bought for $225. And the clue is that you will find Michelangelo's stonemason's mark on the bottom. If you need help about this clue, you may write to us at Grand Central Post Office, Box 847 in Manhattan. Sincerely, Friends of the Museum." See the markings on there? Remember, it's a typewriter, right? They didn't have a computer, so they couldn't hit delete. So she had to make a few changes. Pleased with their effort, they felt that they could take the rest of the day off. They wandered around Rockefeller Center and watched the skaters for a short while. They watched the crowd watching the skaters for a while longer. When they returned to the museum filled with satisfaction and with snacks for their supper, they saw a long line of Sunday people waiting to climb the museum steps. Knowing that everyone in that line would be shepherded in and out, in front of and past the statue, in a matter of minutes, they decided to enter through the rear entrance instead. The guard at the door told them that they would have to use the Fifth Avenue entrance if they wished to see Angel. "Oh, we've already seen that," Jamie said. The guard, from friendliness, helpfulness, or perhaps sheer loneliness, very few people had entered through this door that day, asked Jamie what he thought of it. "Well, we need to do more research, but it seems to me that—" Claudia pulled Jamie's arm. "Come along, Albert," she urged. Remember, she's always trying to fly under the radar, right? She's always talking about being inconspicuous, whereas he's kind of the opposite. He doesn't mind getting noticed. On their way to the rooms containing Greek vases, they again observed the enormous crowd passing by the statue. "As I was about to tell that guard, it seems to me that they should try to get to the bottom of the mystery." Claudia giggled. Jamie joined in. They spent exactly enough time among the vases of ancient Greece to be able to man their waiting stations and not be discovered. So that's the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7. When they left the museum on Monday morning, Claudia walked to the bus stop without even consulting Jamie. "Don't you think we ought to get breakfast first?" he asked. "Mail early in the day," Claudia answered. "Besides, we want them to get this letter as soon as possible." "It will get there faster if we deliver it by hand," Jamie suggested. "Good idea. We'll get our mailbox number, write it in, and then take it to the museum office." Since Jamie was official treasurer of the team, it was he who approached the man behind the cage window at the post office. "I would like to rent a post office box," he declared. "For how long?" the man inquired. "For about 2 days." "Sorry," the man said. "We rent them quarterly." "All right, then. I'll take 8 quarterlies. That makes 2 days." "Quarter of a year," the man said. "That makes 3 months." "Just a minute," Jamie said. He held a whispered conference with Claudia. "Go ahead, rent it," she urged. "It'll cost a stack of money." "Why don't you find out instead of arguing about it now?" Claudia's whisper began to sound like cold water hitting a hot frying pan. "How much will a quarter of a year be?" he asked the postman. $4.50. Jamie scowled at Claudia. "See? I told you a stack." Claudia shrugged her shoulders. "We'll take a long, long bath tonight." The postman hardly looked puzzled. People working at the Grand Central Post Office grow used to strange remarks. They hear so many. They never stop hearing them. They simply stop sending the messages to their brains, like talking into a telephone with no one on the receiver end. "Do you or don't you want it?" he asked. "I'll take it." Jamie paid the rent, signed a form using the name Angelo Michaels. Get it? Angelo Michaels. And gave his address as Marblehead, Massachusetts. He received a key to box number 847. Jamie Angelo Kincaid Michaels felt important having a key to his own mailbox. He found his box and opened the little door. "You know," he remarked to Claudia, "it's a lot like Horn and Hardart's, except that we could have a complete spaghetti dinner for both of us, coming out of the little door instead of just empty, empty space." Paying $4.50 for empty space had been hard on Jamie. Claudia knew they wouldn't take a bus back to the museum. They didn't. Both Claudia and Jamie wanted to deliver the letter, but neither thought he should. Too risky. They decided to ask someone to deliver it for them. Someone with a bad memory for faces. Someone their own age would be best. Someone who might be nosy, but who wouldn't really care about them. It would be easiest to find a school group and select their messenger. They began their search for the group of the day by looking in the usual places: Arms and Armor, the Costume Institute, and Egyptian Art. As they approached the Egyptian wing, they heard the shuffling of feet and a sound they recognized as the folding of chairs and the gathering up of rubber mats. They weren't anxious to hear the talk about mummies again. They never watched repeats on television either. But they decided to look the group over. So they waited inside the tomb. "Now, Saxonburg, I must tell you about that Egyptian tomb called a mastaba. It's not a whole one. It is the beginning of one. You can walk into it. You can spend a lot of time in it, or you can spend very little time in it. You can try to read the picture writing on the walls, or you can read nothing at all. Whether you read or not, whether you spend a lot of time or a little in that piece of ancient Egypt, you will have changed climate for at least that part of your day. It is not a hard place to wait in at all." The group was moving past the entrance. Claudia and Jamie were relaxed and waiting, wrapped up in the vacuum of time created by those warm stone walls. Puffs of conversation broke the silence of their tomb. "Sarah looks like Pharaoh. Pass it on." "When are we going to eat?" "Man, what a lot of walking." The conversation reined in softly and comfortably and told the two stowaways that they had the correct age group. That was the way kids in their classes always talked. Words continued to drizzle into their shelter. "Hey, Rube, look at this." "Come on, Bruce, let me borrow it." Something else now showered down upon them. Something much less comfortable. Familiarity. The names Sarah, Bruce, Rube were familiar. Ages ago, in a time well outside the mastaba, they had heard those names in a classroom, on a school bus. Closer, closer, the sounds poured in. Then one small cloud burst right outside their door. "Hey, let's go back in here." Jamie's eyes caught Claudia's. He opened his mouth. Claudia didn't wait to discover whether he opened it in surprise or to say something. She clamped her hand over his mouth as fast as she could. An adult voice urged, "Come on, boys. We have to stay with the group." It's a group of kids walking past the tomb. Claudia took her hand from Jamie's mouth. She looked at him solemnly and nodded yes. The "Come on, boys" voice belonged to Miss Clendeman, Jamie's third-grade teacher. Rube was Reuben Hurst, and Bruce was Bruce Lansing. Sarah was Sarah Sawhill, and unfortunately she did look a great deal like Pharaoh. Believe it or not, the mountain had come to Mohammed. Their school had come to them. At least Jamie's class had. Jamie was furious. Why had Claudia muzzled him? Did she think he had no sense at all? He pulled his eyebrows down and made his best possible scowl. Claudia held her finger to her lips and signaled him to stay quiet yet. The sounds of third-grade shuffling and third-grade jostling faded from their shelter. The quiet of the ages returned to the tomb. But not to Jamie. He couldn't contain himself another minute. He could still feel the pressure of Claudia's hand over his mouth. "I have half a mind to join that group and go back with them and just be mysterious about where I came from." "If you do that, it'll show that you have half a mind. Exactly half. Only half. Something I've suspected for a long time. You can't even see that this is perfect." "How perfect?" Claudia slowed down. "You go to the museum office, deliver the letter. Tell them you are in the third-grade group that is visiting from Greenwich, and someone asked you to deliver the letter. The teacher said it would be okay. If they ask you your name, say Bruce Lansing, but only if they ask. You know, Claude, when I'm not wishing I could give you a sock right in the nose, I'm glad you're on my team. You're smart even if you're hard to live with." "You'll do it then?" Claudia asked. "Yeah, I'll do it. It is perfect. Let's hurry before they come back." Jamie entered the museum office, and Claudia stood guard outside the door. She intended to step inside the office if she spotted the class returning. Jamie wasn't gone long. Everything had gone well, and they hadn't asked his name. Claudia grabbed his arm as he came out. All the energy of Jamie's wound-up nerves let loose. He collapsed as hard as if Claudia had jumped down off one end of the teeter-totter while he was still sitting on the top end. "Yikes!" he yelled. Claudia was tempted to muzzle him again, but didn't. Instead, she led him out the door into the Fifth Avenue crowd and began walking uptown with him as fast as she could go.